Alright, yeah, this just popped up and I thought, because I wasn't going to do any more videos tonight because it is quite late, but this popped up. I don't know how I kind of feel it. This is British people protesting that they want STARMER out. Well, I don't quite know how I feel about this because it's like, seems to be the way of the world at the moment. Like, you've voted, well, I don't know who voted him in because it seems like from the second he stepped through Downing Street doors, everyone's hated him. Literally. So I don't know who on earth voted him in the first place because no one liked him anyway. Like, literally, it seemed to be immediately people didn't like him. But also you voted for it. That is kind of what democracy is. That is what the system is. Right. You vote for something. Therefore, once he's in for as long as he's in. And the other thing is if you don't like I say, I don't really follow politics and I'm not really either side. Like, I could, like, it just, yeah. But the thing is he has been voted in. And as bad as job as he's doing, he can't do things by himself. It has to be, like, there's levels of things. So if you're not liking things he's passing, it's got to still go, he can't just do things. So if he's doing things and changing things you don't like, it goes higher up than him, basically. But the other thing is that, yeah, this is what I suppose so's democracy is protesting it as well. But yeah, to say like we want STARMER out, it's like it doesn't work like that. Like I say, whether you're for or against him, it just don't work like that. Someone voted for him. Like I say, I don't know who, but someone did. But yeah, let's watch some of these protests. I don't know if I'm going to do all of them, if they're all just clips of the same thing, really. But we'll see. Let's go.
Outside the iconic black door of number 10 Downing Street, British flags are waving, not in celebration, but in warning. A crowd is surging forward. Men and women from every walk of life, veterans, nurses, working class heroes, small business owners, even students who once pinned their hopes on Labour. Now they're all united in a single urgent cry to remove Keir Starmer. And do it now. Just a year ago, no one would have dared imagine this. Starmer, once hailed as Labour's sensible saviour, now finds himself the target of the very people who once cheered his rise. So, what went so catastrophically wrong? And more importantly, why is the anger coming?
What went so catastrophically wrong is that he ran for Prime Minister of England. Who the hell would want that job? I said before, English people just love to moan. And I don't really know. I don't follow. I don't know why you want him out so bad. I don't know why. So people can tell me in the things, but I really don't follow this shit. So yeah, but still, it's like, yeah, let's go.
Go ahead now.
Thank you, conference. True democracy is citizen-led. Politics needs an update. We demand a people's house. We demand a people's house. We are in crisis.
You're going to want to stick.
Not to compare or nothing, right? But this is where America does things properly. Like, how many times did Trump nearly get shot? Like, that was people that really didn't want someone. What do we do in our country? Throw glitter at them and say, true democracy is...
Around, because what we're about to uncover, it's nothing short of explosive.
And they never take the big decisions, and that's why we ended up their record. Open borders, which she was the cheerleader for, a crashed economy, mortgages through the roof, the NHS on its knees, hollowed out armed forces, and what have we got already under this government? 2 million extra NHS appointments, 750 50 Breakfast Club, including one in her constituency, record numbers of people being returned who shouldn't be here, and fully funded increase in defence spending. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Keir Starmer came into Labour leadership riding the coattails of Jeremy Corbyn's populist movement. He spoke the language of the people, promised unity, promised integrity, promised to heal the fractured heart of Labour. But the moment he secured the throne, everything changed. And the truth behind this is absolutely insane. He didn't build on Corbyn's grassroots momentum, he torched it. Overnight, Starmer reshaped Labour into something unrecognisable, sterile, centrist and soulless. Gone were the bold policies, gone were the anti-establishment promises. What we got instead was the political equivalent of soggy Weetabix. Bland, uninspired, forgettable.
Isn't the issue that the ordinary members of the public see massive profits, right?
Yeah.
And they see the energy companies out of control. They see shareholders, the very few, millionaires and billionaires getting richer. The companies are out of control, and they supply ordinary people. Now, at that point when they're out of control, it's a crisis. We know we're heading to a crisis. And at that point, you ask yourself why it is a Labour leader isn't calling, for example, to say, look, unless you can rein this in and govern yourselves in a way that helps.
And here's where everything changes. Because
And that little brief thing, that just made me realise why I don't have a TV. I don't know what show that was, or
public isn't stupid. They saw the flip-flops. One moment, Starmer is tough on immigration. The next, he's cozying up to corporate donors. One week, he's championing working families. The next, he's silent while energy bills skyrocket and wages stagnate. His political platform has become so shapeless, it might as well be jelly on a trampoline. Always moving, never firm. But what if I told you that's not the worst part?
Ordinary people, it's time to renationalise.
Which is what
Why is
Gordon
he so
Brown,
afraid
which is
of it?
what Gordon Brown said, of course,
Right.
but Starmer's not going to go anywhere near that.
No, Gordon Brown said temporary nationalisation if these companies can't
Like the banks.
function. Like the banks. I think Labour should go further, and Starmer should stick to what he promised in 2020 to win the Labour leadership.
He's ripped it all up, Kevin.
Take them back into public ownership. I think the same applies to water, because the market isn't functioning in the interests of consumers.
You said, look at...
You see, it's not just policy betrayal that sparked this public backlash. It's performance. Starmer promised grown-up politics, but to many it looks more like a pantomime of leadership. Carefully scripted soundbites, dodged interviews, pre-chewed media lines delivered with all the passion of a dead light bulb.
Themselves, but if they need help, I'll always be with the British, okay? I'll always be with them. But they don't need help. You look at their career, you have done very well over the years, haven't you?
We have. I'm very proud of our country. And but we've also always been there backing each other up between our two countries. That is why this is the greatest alliance for prosperity and security I think the world has ever seen. Whenever necessary, we absolutely...
No, I do agree with that, but we don't always stand together, to be fair. We didn't back America in Vietnam. They didn't back us in the Falklands. They didn't back us in the Second World War. Really, our relationship come from there after the Second World War. But they didn't back us like Britain really did stand alone in that. Well, stood alone with however many Europeans managed to get to the French Sea to get to Britain before Hitler actually got there. But yeah, not at that point was we united either. In our darkest hour we weren't. But I do agree with him that the end of the world is not China or anybody else. The end of the world is when America, or not the end of the world, the end of the Western world. The fragile Western world that it is at the moment, it is hinged upon that relationship. And that but there has been times, like I say, that America and us haven't been like buddy, like, do you know what I mean? We didn't go to Vietnam with them, I don't think. I think the Australians did, but I don't think we did. They didn't help us in the Falklands. They didn't help us during the Blitz. Yeah. Also, I'm going to do that that meeting.
Backed each other up, and that's at the
Could you
core of
take
the
on Russia by yourselves?
Well,
This is where things go from bad to worse. Because while he was perfecting his PowerPoint presentations, Britain was burning. Energy prices soared, public trust crumbled, economic anxiety tightened its grip, and through it all, Starmer's response: silence, spin, and more photo ops. And if you think that's bad, wait until you hear this part.
Why did Labour MPs vote against banning phones in schools last week?
Prime Minister. Because it's completely unnecessary. I've got teenage children. Almost every school bans phones in school. They do it already. We need to concentrate on what's really important here, which is getting to the content that children shouldn't be accessing. That's where I would genuinely like to work across the House, because I think there's a huge amount of work to do. But
At the very moment ordinary Brits needed boldness, clarity and courage, what they got was a leader who seemed more comfortable in a boardroom than on a picket line. And the people, they took notice.
But to be fair, that's all politicians. But I kind of liked what he said then. I'm guessing they're showing things that he said that got him elected. Because I kind of liked what he said there as well, about focusing on what... Because if you ban... Yeah, you can't really have phones at school. At least you couldn't when I was at school. But yeah, that's more important. Because all right, you ban them at school, but what about when they're not, and what they can access? And yeah, I actually agree with that. You should be focusing more on that, and that's a bigger problem than people want to give credit to it. Of nonsense.
That's why Downing Street isn't just seeing protesters, it's witnessing a full-blown awakening. This isn't just a bad week for Labour, this is a political reckoning.
it places barriers, not just economic barriers.
Reinstate your pledge for 28 billion per year.
I gave on the mission on green power. We did that last one. We've done that one. Will you just? We are on the side of economic growth. Will you just let me, please, get on with this? Thank you very much.
Stop making U-turns here.
We have already. Will you just let me finish this, and I'll come and talk.
So, what's next? Well, you'll want to pay close attention to this part. Because what we're witnessing could mark the beginning of one of the fastest political falls from grace in modern UK history. The truth is, this isn't just a protest, it's a wake-up call.
Get Starmer out! 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 Get Starmer.
As protests gain momentum outside Downing Street,
That's what I always think with them protests. At what point do they stop saying that and just go home? like that's the end of the revolution that gets Starmer out. He's not out. But at what point once you start chanting that, because that's just embarrassing once you stop. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd find that cringeworthy if they're all going to get Starmer. Like, he's not out, so that chanting didn't work. So at what point did you just slowly filter off and go, oh well, yeah, we'll go dinner in a minute.
murmurs are turning into movements. Local Labour groups, once die-hard Starmer loyalists, are beginning to voice discontent. Constituency meetings are reportedly heating up, with members questioning the direction of the party and, more importantly, the man steering the ship. And this part, it changes everything. Because, behind the scenes, there's more than just political discomfort, there's political fear. Senior party figures are reportedly scrambling to manage the optics. Damage control memos are flying. Spin doctors are clocking in overtime. But the problem with putting out a fire this big, you can't do it with damp press releases and vague promises. And this is where things go completely off the rails. Because right in the thick of this chaos, another issue explodes. Labour's net zero policy. What was once paraded as a progressive flagship now feels like a weight around the party's neck. Critics inside and outside the party are calling it uncosted, ungrounded, and economically reckless. Energy bills are spiralling. Industry leaders are raising alarm bells. And while the British public is being told to tighten their belts for a greener future, they're watching billions flow into foreign wind farms and unreliable supply chains. And here's the kicker. Many of those green deals are so deeply embedded in global markets that the UK has effectively traded one dependency for another. But hold on, it gets even better. What we're seeing is a political class that's grown comfortable operating without consequence. Starmer's Labour has turned scepticism into sin and debate into dissent. Parliament, it's looking more like a stage than a chamber of scrutiny, where real issues are dodged and dissenting voices are drowned out. But now, the people are waking up and they're not whispering anymore. The chants outside Downing Street are just the beginning. Across the country, communities are mobilising, grassroots groups are forming, petitions are circulating, and new political challengers, yes, even from the right, are beginning to speak directly to voters who feel abandoned by Labour's beige centrism.
International.
Yeah, I suppose this video is actually kind of, letting me know what it is that people really don't like. And that I'm guessing everything that he said, everything that got him. But that's like what politicians do. How is that new to anyone? That what they get in saying, like they say a load of stuff that gets them in, and they don't do it. Like that is what a politician's job is. Like if you're expecting more out of a politician, then you're the idiot, not them. Do you know what I mean?
Stock and a major health hazard.
No. Well, they've declared a major emergency there. I don't personally hang my head in shame. I think that the Birmingham, force of habit there, Birmingham Council really need to get their act together. Look, this is an untenable situation. We've now got rats the size, not the size of cats, the size of dogs on the streets of those.
Damaging cars.
They are damaging cars. All I can say is if I was a Reform candidate in Birmingham, I'd be rubbing my hands.
Well, there's no local elections there, because if there were local elections, it would have been sorted.
But on the other hand, if I...
And that's just scratching the surface. Because if you listen closely, there's something else happening, a shift in political language. Once, it was Labour who owned the working class voice. But now, that voice is migrating. It's looking for conviction, clarity and courage. It's no longer satisfied with word salads and PR gloss. It wants authenticity. It wants someone who doesn't talk down, but talks straight. And this next part will change the way you see everything.
Look, we need a Green New Deal right now.
Look,
and you keep making
my last speech was about this. Will you please, there's lots of people who want to hear this. Please don't drown them out. Please don't drown them out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right now.
I think
that's not a good look either. That does not look good for. But then, like I say, why are you still thinking Labour? I remember when Tony Blair got voted in, I was little, and even I worked out at that young age. Do you know what I mean? I'm like primary school. I worked out that it was nonsense then, and I've never ever paid attention to it ever since. But that's not a good look, to have people removed, no matter what they're saying or like, yeah, that's not a good man of the people look when you're getting the people dragged away.
you may have missed the fact that the last mission I launched was on clean power by 2030, which is the single most effective way to get the green future that they and many others want.
In the eyes of many disillusioned voters, Starmer isn't just bland, he's dangerously disconnected. His team's obsession with image management has come at the cost of principle. His fear of missteps has paralysed policy. His refusal to take a strong stance on free speech, energy sovereignty and the cost of living crisis has created a vacuum that louder, bolder and more controversial voices are already rushing to fill.
I beg you, Keir Starmer, if you think that an £18 million penthouse is necessary for your child to complete his GCSEs while you're campaigning, why do you not think it's necessary for disabled people to have up to £761 or so to focus on surviving, paying their access needs, paying for mobility aid? Do you think that disabled people don't deserve the bare fucking minimum to be able to pay their living costs in a country that is despicably ableist?
And the final twist is something no one expected. Nigel Farage.
JD Vance is wrong. Wrong. For 20 years in Afghanistan, pro rata, our size against America's, we spent the same amount of money, we put the same number of men and women in, and we suffered the same losses. We stood by America all through those 20 years, putting in exactly the same contribution. And all right, they may be 6 times bigger, but we did our bit. So on this one, JD is wrong.
Yes, you read that right. Sources are whispering that Farage is making calculated moves to reposition himself, not as a one-issue man, but as a viable interlocutor between the British public and the rising wave of conservative populism abroad. Even JD Vance in the US has reportedly engaged in behind-the-scenes conversations with UK figures sympathetic to Starmer's critics. Farage's proximity to Donald Trump is no secret. But now, with Labour floundering and the Conservatives fumbling, Farage might just be positioning himself as the voice of the politically homeless. You'll want to see this through to the end, trust me.
The UK's Prime Minister has responded to US Vice President JD Vance's remarks, which appeared to insult British troops. Live to Nine's Europe correspondent Jessica Millward in London. Jess, what did Sir Keir Starmer say?
Well, this was a not-so-subtle swipe from Sir Keir Starmer 24 hours after the US Vice President offended many when he referred to random countries that haven't fought wars in 30 to 40 years. Now, that was interpreted as the UK and France. And
if Labour doesn't course correct and fast, they won't just lose the next election.
But that's what I mean. If Americans said that, then you say, well, you haven't actually ever won a war. The last war you won, you was allied to us. You joined it late. You've started every war since and haven't won one. You didn't win Vietnam. You haven't won the war in the Middle East. I think the Taliban now has more control than they did 20 years ago. So that's what, like, do you know what I mean? When you just say that back to the Americans, you fought wars, but you ain't won any. Name me a war you've won. All right, the independence, but that wasn't really a war. And the civil one, that was a war amongst yourselves. And the Second World War. But yeah, like I say, that was with everyone else.
They could lose the working class base they've held for generations. They could lose the trust of union partners, cultural communities and centrists who are now realising that bland safety isn't the same as solid leadership. This is about more than Starmer's popularity. This is about Labour's very identity. Will it remain a movement for the people? Or will it become a sterile marketing campaign driven by donor interests, climate virtue signals and media posturing? The answer depends on what happens next.
Now, huge reaction back here in the UK after an explosive interview aired on Fox News. The Vice President, JD Vance, sat down with Sean Hannity to talk through the consequences of aid withdrawal to Ukraine and the possibility of peace. But it was one comment that has been posted to Twitter, quoted and analysed that has set British politics ablaze. That is, of course, the Vice President was talking about how peace could be gained.
One thing's for sure, the British people aren't just demanding answers, they're demanding action. They're standing outside Downing Street not with fanfare, but with fire in their bellies. They're not waving flags out of pride, they're waving them out of protest. And what do you think happens if Starmer doesn't hear them soon? Will he lose their votes or their respect first? Kindly let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Well, to be honest, Like I said before, 1 million people protested in London not to go to Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East. 1 million people. And we still went. And we came out the other year when America did. 1 million people protested that. Protesting doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's a bunch of nonsense. It just makes people feel good about themselves. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have to watch the Keir Starmer. I want to watch that anyway. But people don't like him. And I don't, like I say, I'm guessing it just is that then. Things he said, he ain't done. But, yeah. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, I do know that is true that we have the highest, we pay the highest in gas than anywhere else, I think, in the world. And Nigel Farage is much more of a man of the people. Although, to be fair, I honestly think Tommy Robinson is like, with the actual people, I think that will hurt Nigel Farage. Is not actually accepting Tommy Robinson. Because he doesn't want to kind of ally himself with that. Because Tommy Robinson seemed to be racist, I guess. But I think that people have took more to Tommy Robinson than they did. Like a few years ago, no one liked him. No one. Which shows you how bad things have got in the country, really. I said it before. That like 10, 15 years ago, Tommy Robinson was about, and no one was paying him any mind, really. He had the EDL, but they weren't like now everybody pretty much, like, even your nan and your granddad are, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. But also Nigel Farage. I'm surprised he hasn't ended up being Prime Minister or something yet. Or he will be soon at some point. But yeah. I mean, shout out to protesting and that, but I don't know, it's a bit like the like people do it with even TV shows now. Every time a TV show ends, people go, let's all have a vote to get the last series remade because we didn't like it. It's like people don't like something and then they want it changed, but it's like that's just not kind of how the world works. You have voted for that, and that as bad as things get, that's what the country voted for. So you kind of have to ride it out, and it's like he's in the hot, like he's in the seat, so you kind of have to work with him. Do you know what I mean? It's like pointless just hating. But then, like I say, I don't follow politics. I didn't feel like people do probably feel betrayed by him or whatever. But honestly, to me, it's like, just tell me when the world's over. Just let me know when that happens, and I'll be sweet. That's all I need to know. I just hope it happens before. If it's gonna happen, I hope it. I hope I'm not like elderly when it happens. I'll be fuming when the society collapses. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I waffled about a whole load of weird shit then, and you know why? It's because I'm tired. I don't normally do videos this late, but this popped up, so I had to do it. But yeah, there was definitely some real shit, some surreal shit in there somewhere. But yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts, and yeah, maybe give me some more info of why people hate Keir Starmer more. Because like I say, yeah, I don't follow this shit. But yeah, sweet.